The silence that fell over the dining room wasn't empty. It was thick, suffocating, and somehow colder than the December wind hammering against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Lakeshore Drive penthouse. 22 guests sat frozen mid-bite, crystal glasses of 20-year Bordeaux suspended halfway to lips, their eyes darting between the head of the table and the far end near the kitchen door. The only sound was the soft hum of the climate control system, a system that cost more per month than most of these people spent on rent. Trevor Stewart, 27 years old, and every inch the young master of the universe, sat at the head of the massive walnut table. His charcoal Tom Ford suit fit him like it had been painted on. His dark hair was styled with the kind of casual precision that only comes from a $200 haircut. The Patek Philippe on his wrist caught the light from the modern chandelier above, scattering tiny rainbows across the white walls. Beside him, his wife Vanessa smiled. It was a careful smile, the kind that had been perfected in front of mirrors and Instagram cameras. She was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful, polished, flawless, and just slightly intimidating. Her red dress probably cost more than the catering for this entire dinner. The diamond pendant at her throat, Trevor's first anniversary gift, glinted as she turned to look down the table at me. I sat near the kitchen entrance, my hands folded in my lap, hiding the tremor that had nothing to do with my 68 years and everything to do with a heart that was currently breaking in slow motion. I wore a simple navy dress, no jewelry except my wedding ring from Roberto. The chair they'd given me was slightly smaller than the others. I'd noticed, but said nothing. "Mother," Trevor repeated, his voice carrying that smooth confidence that made investors write checks and subordinates snap to attention. "I don't think you heard me clearly." The formality of mother instead of mom wasn't lost on anyone. "I heard you, Trevor," I said quietly. "Then you understand." He picked up his wine glass, swirled the dark liquid like he was in a commercial. "Vanessa and I have been reviewing the household finances, and frankly, this arrangement isn't sustainable. This penthouse," he gestured around the room at the original Rothko on the wall, the view of Lake Michigan stretching into darkness, "is premium real estate, Gold Coast location, 24-hour concierge, heated parking. If you're going to continue occupying the guest suite, it's only fair that you contribute." "Exactly," Vanessa added, her voice sweet as artificial sweetener. "We're all adults here, Francis. You have your pension, don't you? Your social security? It's time to stop freeloading off Trevor's success. He works too hard to support dead weight." She paused, let that sink in. Even if that dead weight is family. I watched her manicured hand rest on Trevor's arm, the nails painted the color of fresh blood. Around the table, I studied the faces of people I'd known for years. Malcolm Reeves, Trevor's business partner in the venture capital firm, he was examining his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. Jennifer Corso, Vanessa's sorority sister, suddenly fascinated by her phone. My own nephew Marcus, 30 years old and supposedly the family success story, stared at his duck confit like it might come back to life. Not one of them met my eyes. They were all complicit in this. They'd all bought into the narrative. Trevor Stewart, brilliant self-made entrepreneur, supporting his aging mother out of obligation. Poor Trevor, burdened by family responsibility. "How much?" I heard myself ask. Trevor's smile widened. Market rate for a suite this size would be around 4,000 a month. But because you're family, I'm thinking 3,000. That's fair, wouldn't you say? Very fair, Vanessa purred. Generous even. I slowly pushed back my chair. The legs scraped against the marble floor, a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. Every head turned. I stood, and despite the arthritis that made my knees ache in the damp Chicago winter, I stood straight. Roberto used to say I had a steel spine. Tonight, I needed it. I understand, Trevor, I said softly. My voice didn't shake. The trembling in my hands had stopped, replaced by something cold and clear. You're absolutely right. One should never take luxury for granted. Trevor nodded, mistaking my tone for submission. Good. I'll have my assistant draw up a proper lease agreement tomorrow. Market rate minus the family discount, of course. We'll make it official. Of course, I echoed. Francis, wait, Vanessa called out as I turned toward the hallway. Her voice was mocking, performative. You haven't had dessert yet. The chef made tiramisu, your favorite. I didn't look back. I walked past the Rothko worth $3 million, past the console table that cost more than a car, down the hallway with its recessed lighting and white oak floors. I walked to the room they allowed me to occupy, the guest suite that was smaller than their walk-in closet, with its view of the neighboring building's air conditioning units instead of the lake. I closed the door and locked it. For a long moment, I stood with my back against the wood, letting the pain wash over me. It was physical, a sharp ache in the center of my chest, like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart. My son, my only child. The boy I'd carried for 9 months, nursed through colic and chickenpox and teenage heartbreak. The boy who'd sobbed in my arms when his father died. The boy who'd promised, at 13 years old, I'll take care of you forever, Mom. That boy was gone. In his place was a man who would charge his mother rent for the air she breathed. But the pain, sharp as it was, began to change. It transmuted into something else, something I recognized from 40 years ago when I was the only woman on the loading docks of South Chicago, when men twice my size told me I didn't belong, when customers refused to deal with me because I wasn't Roberto. Anger, not the hot, explosive kind, the cold, calculated kind, the kind that builds empires. At 2:00 a.m., I sat at the small desk in the corner of my room, the blue light of my laptop illuminating my face. The building was silent except for the ever-present hum of luxury, the heating, the water pressure, the elevators moving like whispers through the walls. I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Property Tax Records 2024. Innocuous, boring, the kind of thing no one would ever look at twice. Inside was another folder, Operation Phoenix. I'd been preparing this for 6 months, ever since the day I'd overheard Trevor on the phone with Malcolm, laughing about how the old lady doesn't understand modern business, while literally sitting in the office of a company I'd built from nothing. Ever since I'd watched him berate a warehouse worker for being too slow, not knowing that worker was a single mother of 3 doing her best. Ever since Vanessa had started openly mocking me to her friends, thinking I couldn't hear. 6 months of watching my son transform into someone I didn't recognize. My finger hovered over the mouse. On the screen in front of me was an email, already composed, addressed to David Klein, my personal attorney for 30 years. Subject, Operation Phoenix. Execute David. Proceed with full implementation. All assets to be reclaimed by end of business tomorrow. No exceptions. Track his location and status. Daily reports. I need to know he's safe. F. I looked at the framed photo on the desk. Trevor at 5 years old, missing his 2 front teeth, holding up a drawing he'd made of our family. Stick figures, a tall one labeled Daddy, a medium one labeled Mommy, and a small one labeled Me. Above us, he'd drawn a sun with the words, "We are happy." The memory hit me like a physical blow. Roberto's voice, weak from the hospital bed, 3 days before he died. "Francis, promise me something." "Anything, mi amor." "Don't let Trevor become me." I'd squeezed his hand, not understanding. "You built a good life for us." "No." He'd been firm despite his weakness. "You built it." I inherited my father's company and nearly ran it into the ground. "You saved it. You made it what it is. Trevor thinks I was this great businessman. He doesn't know I was a fraud." "Roberto, listen to me. I never had to fight. I never had to earn. I never learned the value of anything because it was all just there, and I almost lost everything because of it." His eyes still sharp despite the morphine. "Trevor thinks he's going to inherit an empire. Don't let him. Make him earn it, Francis. Make him build something himself. It'll be the hardest thing you ever do." "But he'll hate me." "For a while. But he'll thank you eventually. Or he won't. Either way, you'll have given him the only thing that matters. The chance to know who he really is." I wiped my eyes. The tears had come without permission. "Am I doing the right thing, Roberto?" I whispered to the empty room. The apartment didn't answer, but I knew what he'd say. I thought about calling it off. I thought about walking into Trevor's room right now, waking him up, having a real conversation like we used to when he was young, before the money, before Vanessa, before he'd convinced himself that his title made him important. But I'd tried that. 6 months ago, I'd sat him down and tried to have that conversation. He'd checked his phone 3 times, made 2 calls, and finally said, "Mom, I don't have time for this right now. I have real work to do." Real work. As if building a company from scratch, as if working 16-hour days, as if earning respect one decision at a time wasn't real work. My hand moved. The cursor clicked send. The whoosh of the email disappearing into the digital ether felt final, irrevocable. I opened a new document and began typing. "Trevor, sometimes the greatest gift a mother can give is letting go. Not because she doesn't love you, but because she loves you too much to let you sleepwalk through life. You need to find yourself. And you won't do that here, in the shadow of what your father and I built. When you're ready, when you've become the man I know you can be, come home. I love you. I've never stopped. I never will." I printed it, folded it carefully, and placed it on the pillow of the bed. I'd barely slept in tonight. Then I packed my single suitcase, the same one I'd carried 43 years ago when I first came to Chicago from Mexico, pregnant and hopeful and terrified. At 4:17 a.m., I walked out of the penthouse for the last time. The Uber driver, a tired-looking man named Hassan, helped me with my bag. "Early flight?" he asked. No, I said, looking up at the building one last time. Just going home. Trevor woke at 8 a.m. to his phone buzzing. He ignored it. Vanessa was still asleep beside him, her eye mask perfectly positioned, her silk pillowcase protecting her hair. He reached for his phone to silence it, planning to go back to sleep. They'd been up until 2 a.m. with guests, drinking expensive whiskey and laughing about. He frowned. What had they been laughing about? His mother's face flashed through his mind. The way she'd looked when he demanded rent. The set of her shoulders as she'd walked away. He pushed the thought aside. She'd understand eventually. This was business. This was the real world. His phone buzzed again. Email notification. He tapped it, squinting at the screen. Subject: lease termination. Immediate effect. From Stewart Property Holdings, LLC. What? He sat up, suddenly awake, read it once, twice, 3 times. Dear Mr. Stewart, effective immediately, your tenancy at 1500 North Lakeshore Drive, Penthouse Unit 2807, is hereby terminated. Per the terms of the Corporate Housing Agreement, Section 4, Paragraph B, the owner reserves the right to reclaim the property with 0 notice due to violation of company conduct policies. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. All corporate property, including but not limited to furniture, vehicles, and credit accounts, must be returned or will be repossessed. Sincerely, Stewart Property Holdings. Legal Department. Trevor laughed. Out loud. A genuine laugh. This had to be a joke. Some kind of prank. Maybe Malcolm's idea of humor? He dialed the number at the bottom of the email. Stewart Property Holdings. How may I direct your call? The voice was professional, efficient, female. Yeah, hi, this is Trevor Stewart. I just received a completely ridiculous email about my apartment. There's obviously been some kind of mistake. I need to speak to whoever's in charge of... One moment, Mr. Stewart. Elevator music. The generic kind that makes you want to scream. Then a voice he recognized. David Klein, his mother's attorney, old family friend, the man who used to bring him candy when he was a kid. Hello, Trevor. David. Thank God. Look, there's been some massive screw up with the property management system. I just got an eviction notice. Can you fix this? I'm supposed to have a meeting with investors at... It's not a mistake, Trevor. The warmth drained from Trevor's voice. What? The instruction came directly from the owner. The eviction is legitimate and legal. The owner? You mean the board? Why would the board care about my apartment? Not the board, Trevor. The owner, your mother. The phone felt suddenly heavy in his hand. My mother? David, what are you talking about? Mom lives in the guest room. Your mother left the building at 4:17 this morning, Trevor. And she's not just your mother. She's Frances Eleanor Stewart, founder and majority shareholder of Stewart Global Logistics, the parent company that owns Stewart Property Holdings, which owns your apartment, your car, and issues the corporate credit cards that Vanessa is currently using at... He paused. According to the transaction alerts I'm seeing right now, Neiman Marcus. Trevor's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. That's impossible, he finally managed. Dad left the company to me. He said, your father left you a $2 million trust fund, Trevor. You emptied it in 18 months on cryptocurrency investments that went to zero every penny since then. The apartment, the car, the lifestyle, even your salary has been funded through Stewart Global Logistics by your mother. But you're the CEO of Stewart Ventures, a subsidiary that your mother created 5 years ago to see if you could manage a P&L. You haven't turned a profit in 4 years. The subsidiary exists because your mother keeps funding it, hoping you'll figure out how business actually works. Trevor felt the room tilt. This is insane. David, you can't just... The lease is terminated, Trevor. The Aston Martin has been reported as a recalled company asset. The credit cards have been frozen. You have until 4 p.m. tomorrow to vacate. Security will be there to collect the keys and any company property. David, I'm sorry, Trevor. Your mother gave me very clear instructions. Goodbye. The line went dead. Trevor sat there, phone pressed to his ear, listening to silence. Beside him, Vanessa stirred. Babe, why are you up? Come back to bed. Vanessa, he said slowly, we need to talk. Later, I'm exhausted. Vanessa, sit up, right now. Something in his voice made her pull off her eye mask. She looked at him, confused. What's wrong? When were you at Neiman Marcus this morning? I wasn't. I've been asleep. Trevor checked his watch. 8:14 a.m. He checked the corporate card app on his phone. Last transaction. 8:02 a.m. Neiman Marcus, 3,847. Vanessa, did you give your card to someone? No, I stopped there yesterday after my hair appointment. Why? What did you buy for $3,000? That vintage Hermes scarf I showed you, the one from the 50s. They had to verify it was authentic, so they ran the card this morning when... Trevor, why does it matter? His phone buzzed. A text from the corporate card company. Card declined. Please contact issuer. Then another buzz. Another card. Card declined. Trevor's hands started shaking. Vanessa, he said quietly, get dressed. We need to pack. Pack? Pack for what? We have to leave. Leave? Trevor, what are you talking about? He looked at his wife, really looked at her for maybe the first time in months. She was beautiful. She was smart. She'd been by his side for 3 years, and she had no idea who he really was. Neither did he, apparently. My mother, he said, his voice hollow. She owns everything. The movers arrived at exactly 4 p.m. the next day. Not a minute early, not a minute late. 6 men in matching navy blue uniforms with Stewart Asset Management embroidered on their shirts. They were polite, efficient, and completely unmoved by Vanessa's tears or Trevor's protests. Sir, we have our orders, the lead mover said, a barrel-chested man named Rodriguez. His tone wasn't unkind, but it was final. Everything on this list belongs to Stewart Global Logistics. We are here to reclaim company property. The list was 12 pages long. Trevor watched, numb, as they began dismantling his life. The Herman Miller chairs from the dining room, company property. The sectional sofa where he'd watched the Super Bowl, company property. The Samsung frame TV that looked like art, company property. The KitchenAid appliances, company property. The restoration hardware bed frame, company property. Wait, Vanessa said, her voice rising. The bed? You're taking our bed? Rodriguez consulted his tablet. Purchased on corporate account, March 2023. It's on the list, ma'am. This is insane. Vanessa turned to Trevor. Do something. But what could he do? He tried calling David Klein 17 times. 17 times. It went to voicemail. He tried calling his mother. Her number was disconnected. He tried calling Malcolm, his business partner. Malcolm had answered once, said, "I can't help you with this, man," and hung up. The worst part wasn't the furniture. It was what they left. Trevor stood in the middle of the living room, watching the movers work with mechanical precision, and realized that almost nothing in this apartment actually belonged to him. The books on the shelf, he'd never read them. They were decorator picks. The art on the walls, Vanessa had chosen them, paid for with the corporate card. Even his custom suits, he opened his closet and found Rodriguez already there with a scanner. These were purchased at Jeeves and Hawkes using corporate account, Rodriguez said, not looking up. They're company property. They're tailored to my body. Yes, sir. For corporate representation purposes, they're still company property. In the end, they left Trevor and Vanessa with 4 suitcases. 4 suitcases for 3 years of marriage and a successful life. Vanessa stood in the empty living room, her heels clicking on the bare marble floor, and started laughing. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone whose sanity is hanging by a thread. This is what we have. 4 suitcases? Trevor didn't answer. He was staring at something Rodriguez had left on the kitchen counter. A cardboard box, not on the inventory list. Inside, his childhood toys, a worn teddy bear named Mr. Bumbles, his Little League trophy, a framed photo of him and his dad at a White Sox game, his high school yearbook, things that had been in storage, things he'd forgotten about, things his mother had packed for him. Tucked into the yearbook was a note in her handwriting. These are yours. You earned them, Mom. Trevor's chest tightened. He quickly closed the box before Vanessa could see the tears in his eyes. The 4 seasons felt like a cruel joke. They checked in with the last credit card that still worked, Trevor's personal card with a $5,000 limit. The room was nice. Not penthouse nice, but nice. 2 nights would max out the card. What are we going to do? Vanessa asked. She sat on the edge of the bed, still in her designer outfit, looking lost. I'll call some people. My investors, my business partners. Someone will what? Give you money? Why would they? Because we're friends. Vanessa looked at him with something like pity. Trevor, we don't have friends. We had contacts. We had people who came to our parties because we threw good parties. That's not the same thing. He wanted to argue, but his phone was already proving her right. Text after text, left unread. Calls going straight to voicemail. On the 3rd day, Trevor tried his uncle Marcus. Marcus answered, which was something. Trevor, I was wondering when you'd call. Marcus, I need help. Mom has lost her mind. She's taken everything. She hasn't lost anything, Trevor. She's found her spine. What? We all knew, man. Everyone at that dinner. Everyone you work with. We all knew Francis ran Stewart Global. We didn't tell you because you seemed so happy playing CEO. The words hit like a fist. You knew? Of course we knew. Frances Stewart is a legend in Chicago business. She's been running that company since before you were born. Did you really think she was just some retired old lady living in your guest room? I thought your dad was a great guy, Trevor. But he wasn't a businessman. Frances saved that company 3 times before your dad died. Everyone knows that. Everyone except you, apparently. The line went dead. Trevor stared at his phone. Then, very carefully, he set it down on the nightstand. What did he say? Vanessa asked. He said everyone knew. Knew what? That I was a fraud. On the 4th day, the Four Seasons politely informed them that the card on file had been declined. Would they like to provide alternative payment? They moved to a Holiday Inn near O'Hare. One night. Then they'd figure something out. On the 5th day, Vanessa made a decision. I'm going back to Miami, she said. She was packing her suitcase, one of the 4, with calm efficiency. Vanessa, my mom's been asking me to come home for 2 years. I kept saying no because I was too proud. Turns out, I was proud of the wrong things. So you're just leaving? She stopped packing and looked at him, really looked at him. Trevor, I need to tell you something, and I need you to actually hear me. He waited. I grew up poor, like actually poor, like sometimes we didn't have electricity poor. My mom cleaned houses. My stepdad worked construction. I put myself through community college waiting tables. She zipped up her suitcase. When I met you, you were everything I thought I wanted. Money, status, confidence. I thought if I married you, I'd never have to worry again. And now I realize I married a lie. And I helped you believe it because it benefited me. She pulled something from her purse, a small envelope. This is $500. It's from my old waitressing job, money I saved before we got married. I kept it hidden because some part of me always knew this wasn't real. Trevor stared at the envelope. Vanessa, I can't. Yes, you can. Because I'm not doing this to be nice. I'm doing this because I need to look at myself in the mirror and I need to know I didn't completely lose who I was. She kissed his forehead, a gesture that felt more like goodbye than anything they'd ever shared. Figure out who you are, Trevor, the real you, not the costume your mother's money bought you. She wheeled her suitcase to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you find him, the real Trevor. I think I might have actually liked that guy. Then she was gone. Trevor sat in the Holiday Inn room, holding $500 that felt heavier than it should. The Pacific Garden Mission on South Canal Street smelled like industrial cleaner, old sweat, and defeat. Trevor stood in line with 40 other men, waiting for a bed assignment. It was his 3rd night here. The $500 was gone, eaten up by food, a gym membership for showers, and a storage unit for the 4 suitcases and 1 cardboard box. Next, the intake volunteer called. She was a tired-looking woman in her 50s with kind eyes. Name? Robert, Trevor said. His middle name. He couldn't bear to use Trevor. Robert Stewart. Welcome, Robert. Bunk 24. Lights out at 10. Breakfast at 6. Bunk 24 was in the corner, bottom bunk. The man above him was already asleep, snoring softly. Across the narrow aisle, an elderly black man sat on his bunk, reading a worn paperback by the dim overhead light. Trevor lay down on the thin mattress. It crinkled, plastic cover under the sheet. Everything smelled like bleach. He could hear coughing from down the row, someone crying quietly in the dark, the shuffle of feet as men made their way to the communal bathroom. This was rock bottom. He closed his eyes and saw the penthouse, the view of the lake, the heated floors, Vanessa's laugh, his mother's face as he demanded rent. Dead weight. He'd called his mother dead weight. Can't sleep either, huh? Trevor opened his eyes. The old man from across the aisle was looking at him. First time in a shelter? The man asked. His voice was gravelly but gentle. Yeah. Thought so? You got that look, like you're still in shock. He set down his book. I'm Walter, Vietnam vet. Been here on and off since 8. The financial crisis? Lost my house, my pension got cut. Everything just kind of collapsed. Walter smiled, but it was sad. What's your story, kid? Trevor almost told him. Almost said, my mother owns $1 billion company and I didn't even know it. But he couldn't get the words out. Bad luck, he finally said. Walter snorted. Nah, I can smell a trust fund kid from a mile away. The posture, the teeth, the way you hold yourself like the world's supposed to make space for you. He wasn't being mean, just factual. You didn't fall because of bad luck. You fell because you flew too high on borrowed wings. The words hung in the air between them. Yeah, Trevor whispered. Yeah, I guess I did. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. Well, you better figure it out. Because this, Walter gestured around the shelter, this is the bottom. And you can either stay here or you can start climbing. But climbing's hard. Climbing means admitting you were wrong. Means doing things you think you're too good for. Means becoming someone new. Trevor looked at his hands in the dim light. Soft hands, manicured hands, hands that had never built anything real. I don't know how to climb, he admitted. Sure you do. One step at a time. One job at a time. One day at a time. Walter picked up his book again. Get some sleep, kid. Tomorrow's coming, whether you're ready or not. Trevor lay there in the dark, listening to the sounds of 40 men who'd lost everything. And for the first time since that Christmas dinner, he actually thought about his mother. Not the woman who'd taken everything away. The woman who'd built everything in the first place. She'd started with nothing. She'd been younger than he was now, pregnant, in a foreign city, working on loading docks where men told her she didn't belong, and she'd built an empire. One should never take luxury for granted, she'd said. She wasn't being cruel. She was telling him the truth. He'd never earned anything. Not the apartment, not the title, not the respect, not even Vanessa's love. She'd just admitted as much. He'd been playing dress-up in his mother's empire, and he'd convinced himself it was real. Trevor turned his face to the wall and cried, quietly so no one would hear. But he cried like he hadn't cried since his father died. And somewhere in that breaking, something else began. Not hope exactly, but possibility. The Labor Ready office on West 35th Street opened at 7 a.m. Trevor was there at 6:45, standing in the cold with a dozen other men. Some were clearly regulars, laughing and smoking cigarettes. Others, like him, looked shell-shocked and desperate. Inside, the fluorescent lights were harsh. The woman behind the desk had seen it all before, every variation of broken pride and empty pockets that Chicago could produce. Her nameplate read Maria Rodriguez. Name? She asked without looking up. Robert Stewart? Experience? Trevor hesitated. I worked in business, management. Now she looked up. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. Management of what? Venture capital, investment analysis, portfolio management. Maria leaned back in her chair. Let me tell you what I see, Robert. I see a man with soft hands, expensive shoes that are only 6 months old, and a college ring he thinks I didn't notice him trying to hide. I see a man who's running from something. Am I wrong? Trevor swallowed. No, ma'am. You can call me Maria. And I'm going to ask you one question, and I want the truth. Are you actually ready to work, or are you going to quit the first time someone yells at you? I'm ready. Are you? Because most college kids quit in 3 days. The work is hard. The pay is shit. The people you'll work with won't care about your degree or your portfolio management skills. They'll care if you can lift 50 pounds and show up on time. I'll show up, Trevor said, and he meant it. Maria studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled out a form. Warehouse work, loading dock at Midwest Distribution Hub. Night shift, 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. $16 an hour. You'll need steel-toed boots. There's a supply store 2 blocks down. Don't show up without them or they'll send you home. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't worked a single shift. She handed him the form. And Robert, whatever you're running from, you'll still be running from it tomorrow morning. The only way out is through. Trevor took the form. His hands were shaking slightly. One more thing, Maria said. You see that guy over there? She nodded toward a muscular black man filling out paperwork. That's Tyrell Williams. He's been doing warehouse work for 15 years. 2 jobs, putting his daughter through private school. Show him respect, listen when he talks, and maybe you'll make it past day 3. Yes, ma'am. Maria, she corrected. Then, almost gently, good luck, kid. I hope you find what you're looking for. Trevor's first night at Midwest Distribution Hub, he lasted 4 hours before throwing up in the bathroom. His back spasmed from lifting wrong. His hands blistered. The night supervisor, a gruff man named Jake Miller, took one look at him and sighed. Hollywood, you gonna make it? The nickname stuck. Trevor was Hollywood now, not because he was glamorous, but because everyone could tell he was soft, privileged, pretending to be something he wasn't. I'm fine, Trevor managed. You're not fine, but if you want to keep this job, you better learn to fake it. Jake handed him a pair of work gloves. Tape your hands before shift. Use your legs, not your back. And for God's sake, stop trying to prove something. Just do the work. Week 1 was physical hell. Trevor discovered muscles he didn't know existed, and they all hurt. He couldn't sleep because his back ached. He couldn't eat much because everything made him nauseous from exhaustion. Week 2, something shifted. Not easier, exactly, but familiar. His body started adapting. He learned the rhythm of the warehouse, the dance of forklifts and pallets, the flow of trucks arriving and departing. And he met Tyrell. You're the new guy Maria sent, Tyrell said during lunch break. He unwrapped a sandwich, looked at Trevor's vending machine dinner. That's not food, man. It's all I can afford right now. Tyrell studied him. You really down on your luck? Or you playing poor? I'm really down. All right then. Tyrell split his sandwich, handed Trevor half. My wife makes extra. She's always worried I'm not eating enough. The sandwich was turkey and cheese on wheat bread. Nothing fancy. It tasted like the best thing Trevor had ever eaten. Thanks, he managed. Thank me by not quitting, Tyrell said. Maria sends us college kids all the time. They quit when they realize this is actual work. You seem different, like you're running from something. I am. Yeah? Well, this is a good place to run to. Works hard, but it's honest. Tyrell took a bite of his sandwich. I got a daughter, Maya. She's 16, smart as hell, wants to be an engineer. I work here and at a warehouse in Joliet, switching off so I can pay for her private school. Trevor felt something crack inside him. That's amazing. It's what fathers do. We give our kids what we didn't have. Tyrell looked at Trevor directly. What did your father give you? The question hung in the air. Everything, Trevor said quietly, and I didn't even know it. Week 3, Trevor started noticing things. The inefficiencies, the way forklifts crossed paths, creating bottlenecks, the way the inventory system lagged, causing delays. His brain, trained for analysis even if he'd never actually used it properly, started working. During lunch, he sketched the warehouse layout on a napkin. What are you doing? Tyrell asked. The flow pattern is wrong. Look, Trevor showed him. If we reroute here and here, we could save at least 3 hours per shift. Tyrell looked at the sketch, then at Trevor. Hollywood, who are you really? Someone who's trying to figure that out. Frances woke at 6 a.m. every morning in her brownstone in Lincoln Park. The first thing she did, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else, was open her laptop and read the report. Private investigator, daily updates. Subject, Trevor Stewart. Date, March 15th, 2025. Location, studio apartment, Pilsen neighborhood, 820 dealers, month employment, Midwest distribution hub, night shift, status, subject appears healthy, arrived at work on time, no signs of substance abuse or mental health crisis. Notes. Subject had lunch with co-worker Tyrell Williams. Appeared to be in good spirits. Frances read it 3 times like she did every morning. She closed the laptop and allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to cry. This was the hardest thing she'd ever done. Harder than building the company. Harder than losing Roberto. Harder than anything. Every day, she wanted to call Trevor. Every day, she wanted to send a car to pick him up, bring him home, tell him everything was forgiven. But she couldn't. Not yet. How's he doing? David Klein asked. It was their weekly breakfast, a tradition they'd maintained for 30 years. They sat in Frances's kitchen, drinking Cuban coffee and eating toast. He's surviving. That's not what I asked. Frances was quiet for a moment. He's working. Actually working. The reports say he's getting better at it. Tyrell, one of the veterans at the warehouse, has taken him under his wing. And how are you doing? I'm dying inside, David. Every single day. Frances set down her coffee cup. Last night, I drove to his apartment. I sat outside in my car for an hour, just watching his window. The lights were on. I could see his shadow moving around. I wanted to go up there so badly. Why didn't you? Because if I did, I'd undo everything. He needs to finish this. He needs to know he can survive without me. She looked at David. Roberto was right. I gave Trevor everything, and in doing that, I gave him nothing. He might not forgive you. I know. Was it worth it? Potentially losing your son to teach him a lesson? Frances thought about that. About Trevor at Christmas, calling her dead weight. About Trevor's soft hands and softer character. About the boy he'd been and the man he'd become. Ask me again in 6 months, she said. David reached across the table, squeezed her hand. You're the strongest person I know, Frances. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm breaking. That's because love isn't strong. It's fragile. It's terrifying. And you're doing it anyway. After David left, Frances went to her study. On the wall was a photograph from 1985. She was 28, 8 months pregnant with Trevor, standing on the loading dock of Stewart Global's first warehouse. She wore steel-toed boots and a hard hat. Her hands were dirty. Her face was exhausted, but she was smiling because she was building something, not just a company, a life, a legacy. She'd done it once. Trevor could do it too. By May, Trevor had stopped being Hollywood. He was Rob now, just Rob. His body had changed. He'd lost the soft layer of luxury, gained muscle from lifting boxes. His hands were permanently calloused. He could work a 12-hour shift without breaking, could lift 80 pounds without help. But more importantly, his mind had changed. Jake, can I show you something? Trevor asked one afternoon. He'd stayed late, sketching out a new warehouse layout during his break. Jake Miller looked skeptical. What now, Rob? The flow pattern. I've been tracking it for 3 weeks. Trevor spread out his diagrams on the break room table. We're losing 3 hours every shift because the forklifts cross paths here, here, and here. If we reroute the main corridor and stagger the loading times, we could increase efficiency by 30%. Jake studied the diagrams. His skepticism slowly morphed into interest. Where'd you learn to do this? I used to work in business analysis. It wasn't a lie, exactly. And you're working here, why? Because I needed to start over. Jake looked at him for a long moment. These diagrams are good, Rob. Really good. This could save the company 50 grand a year in overtime. I just noticed the patterns. No. Jake rolled up the diagrams. You did more than notice. You solved a problem. Come with me. They walked through the warehouse. Jake explaining the layout to the other supervisors, Trevor answering questions. By the end of the shift, the plant manager had approved a test run of Trevor's system. 2 weeks later, efficiency was up by 28%. Jake pulled Trevor aside. The regional manager wants to meet you. This might mean a promotion, logistics coordinator, $22 an hour. $22 an hour. 6 months ago, Trevor had spent that much on a single cocktail. Now it felt like winning the lottery. On July 3rd, the news broke. Massive ransomware attack cripples Chicago logistics network. Trevor watched the news on his phone during break. Every major logistics company in the Midwest had been hit. Systems locked, deliveries stopped. The reporter mentioned that hospitals were running out of critical supplies. This is bad, Tyrell said, reading over his shoulder. Really bad. By midnight, Midwest distribution systems went down too. The warehouse descended into chaos. Trucks arriving with nowhere to unload. Drivers stranded. The entire digital infrastructure gone. Jake gathered the night crew. We're going manual, paper manifest, radio dispatch, the old way. Anyone here remember how to do that? Silence. The youngest supervisor was 30. They'd all grown up with computers. I might, Trevor said. Everyone turned to look at him. The system architecture here, it's similar to something I worked with before. There's probably a legacy backup, analog routing protocols. If I can access the old server room, the what now? Jake asked. Come with me. Trevor led them to a locked door in the back of the warehouse. Inside was equipment from the 90s, old servers, paper filing systems, radio dispatch boards covered in dust. This stuff still works? Jake asked. It should. It's not connected to the internet, so the ransomware, they couldn't touch it. Trevor started pulling covers off equipment, his hands moving with surprising confidence. We can route manually. It'll be slower, but it'll work. For the next 6 hours, Trevor became a different person. Not the venture capital kid, not Hollywood, someone who actually knew what he was doing. By 6 a.m., they had trucks moving again. Jake clapped him on the shoulder. Rob, you just saved our ass? But Trevor was staring at the news on his phone. Stewart Global Logistics, the name had caught his eye. They were hit hardest. Systems completely frozen. Emergency board meeting called. His mother's company. The company he'd thought was his. The company she'd built from nothing. And it was dying. Trevor walked home as dawn broke over Chicago. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. His body ached. His mind raced. He passed the Italian bakery on 18th Street. In the window, a tiramisu cake sat on display. He stopped, stared at it, remembered Christmas Eve, the dining room, his mother's face as he demanded rent, Vanessa's cruel laugh. You haven't had dessert. The chef made tiramisu, your favorite. The memory hit him like a physical blow. He'd been so cruel, so carelessly, unnecessarily cruel. And for what? To impress people who didn't care about him? To feel powerful in a power that wasn't his? His mother had built everything, and he treated her like she was worthless. Trevor pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. He deleted her contact information in a fit of rage back in January, but he still knew the number by heart. It rang 4 times. He almost hung up. Hello? Her voice, cautious, uncertain, but unmistakably hers. Mom? His voice cracked on the word. Trevor? A sharp intake of breath. Trevor, are you okay? Are you safe? Do you need... I don't need money, Mom. The words came out too fast. I needed to hear your voice. Silence, then softly. I've wanted to hear yours for so long. I'm working, Mom. Real work. Loading docks. Inventory management. I'm actually good at it. I know. Her voice broke. I've known everything, baby. Where you live, where you work, that you're friends with Tyrell, and that you help his daughter with her college essays. I've known all of it. You've been watching me? I had to know you were safe. I had to know... She was crying now. I had to know I hadn't broken you. Trevor leaned against the bakery window, tears streaming down his face. You didn't break me, Mom. You fixed me. I just. It took me this long to understand. Where are you right now? Standing outside a bakery, looking at tiramisu, remembering what an asshole I was to you. Frances laughed through her tears. You were an asshole. I know, Mom, I'm so sorry for everything, for not seeing you, for not seeing what you built, for treating you like, stop. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. I called you dead weight, and I was letting you drown. We both have things to be sorry for. Trevor wiped his eyes. Can I see you? Not yet. The words hurt, but he understood. Why not? Because you're not done yet, Trevor, and neither am I. When the moment is right, we'll both know. How will I know? You'll know because you'll have become the man I always knew you could be, the man your father wanted you to be. What if I never become that man? You already are, baby. You're just still figuring it out. They were both quiet for a moment, just breathing, just being. Mom? Yes? I love you. I never stopped. I love you too. More than you'll ever know. A pause. Now go home, get some sleep. And Trevor? Yeah? I'm so proud of you. The line went dead. Trevor stood there, phone pressed to his ear, crying in front of a bakery window as Chicago woke up around him. But these weren't tears of despair. They were tears of something else. Something that felt like hope. By mid-June, Trevor had been promoted to logistics coordinator at $22 an hour. He rented a studio apartment in Pilsen for $850 a month, furnished it with IKEA and Craigslist finds, and felt genuinely proud of the space because every piece was earned. Sunday dinners at Tyrell's became routine. Tyrell's wife, Patricia, worried Trevor wasn't eating enough and fed him like a son. Their daughter Maya asked him to review her college essays. You're really good at this, Maya said, watching Trevor edit her Northwestern application. Did you go to college? Yeah, University of Chicago. Maya's eyes widened. Seriously? Then why are you? Because I needed to learn what college couldn't teach me, Trevor said simply. One evening, Jake pulled Trevor aside. Rob, you ever think about working for one of the big companies? Stewart Global, maybe? They're the giant in the industry. Trevor's chest tightened. Stewart Global? Yeah, Frances Stewart built it from nothing. She's a legend. Started on the loading docks in the 80s, only woman in the business. Took over her husband's failing company and turned it into a billion-dollar empire. Jake shook his head admiringly. Now, that's someone who earned their throne. Trevor felt something crack open inside him. His mother wasn't just successful. She was legendary, and everyone knew it. Everyone except him. The ransomware attack hit during the holiday weekend. By Friday night, every major logistics company was paralyzed. Trevor watched the news in his apartment, saw the reporter mention Stewart Global Logistics specifically. The company's board has called an emergency meeting. Sources say founder Frances Stewart may be forced to step down if the crisis isn't resolved within 48 hours. Trevor's phone buzzed. Group text from Jake. We're down too. Need all hands on deck. Get here ASAP. At the warehouse, chaos reigned. Digital systems frozen. Trucks backed up. Drivers shouting. Trevor worked through the night, implementing his analog workaround, the same system he'd developed weeks ago. By dawn, Midwest distribution was operational again. But Stewart Global wasn't. Jake showed him a news article. The board's voting to oust Frances Stewart. Can you believe that? After everything she built. Trevor stared at his mother's photo in the article. She looked tired, older than he remembered. Jake, Trevor said slowly, I know how to fix their system. How could you possibly? Because I know their architecture, the legacy infrastructure. Trevor's heart was pounding. Because Frances Stewart is my mother. Jake's jaw dropped. You're Trevor Stewart? The son who... Yeah, the son who thought he built what she actually built. The son who treated her like shit. Trevor grabbed his jacket. And I'm going to fix this. Trevor arrived at Stewart Global headquarters at 3 o'clock a.m., still in his warehouse uniform. Security didn't recognize him. I'm here to see Frances Stewart. It's about the system breach. Ma'am, the guard said into his radio, there's a man here claiming he can help. Says he's your son. 2 minutes later, Frances appeared in the lobby. She looked exhausted, defeated. The board had just suspended her pending crisis resolution. Then she saw Trevor, thinner, harder, real, and her hand went to her mouth. Trevor? Mom, he held up his sketches. I can fix this. The legacy system architecture, I've been working with it at Midwest. There's an analog bypass. You've been at Midwest this whole time? You knew, didn't you? Every day, her voice broke. Every single day. Board member Richard Hammond appeared. Frances, we don't have time for family reunions. The company is dying. Shut up, Trevor said quietly. My mother built this company before you learned to tie your shoes. I'm going to save it. Then you're going to apologize to her. In the server room, Trevor worked with the IT team. His hands flew across keyboards, his voice steady as he explained the routing protocol. Frances stood beside him, watching her son become someone she'd always known he could be. Trevor, are you sure about this? She whispered. I learned from the best, Mom. I fall down, I get up. It's what stewards do. At 6:47 a.m., a green light appeared on the main board. Then another. Then the entire map of Chicago lit up like Christmas. Trucks started moving. The room erupted in cheers. Trevor stumbled, exhausted, and Frances caught him. First hug in 7 months. I've got you, she whispered. I've always got you. The emergency board meeting convened at 10 o'clock a.m. Gentlemen, Frances said, her voice steel, my son just saved this company. With all due respect, Frances, Richard began, he's been a warehouse worker for 6 months. He's hardly qualified for... I don't want a position, Trevor interrupted. I want to work my way up. Operations coordinator, Midwest region. I want to earn it. The board stared. I learned something these past months, Trevor continued. My mother earned her throne. I'm going to earn mine. The right way. Richard actually smiled. That's surprisingly mature, Mr. Stewart. Frances resumed control as chairwoman. Trevor was hired as operations coordinator at $62,000 per year. No special treatment. No corner office. After the meeting in Frances's office, Trevor asked, Mom, why did you really do it? The real reason. Frances opened a drawer, pulled out a yellowed letter. Your father wrote this 3 days before he died. Trevor read, Frances, if I don't make it, promise me something. Don't let Trevor become me. I inherited everything. I never had to fight, never had to earn. I almost destroyed what my father built before you saved it. Trevor thinks I'm this great businessman. He doesn't know the truth that you're the one who built our empire. Make him earn his place, or he'll waste his life living a lie like I almost did. It will be the hardest thing you ever do, but it will be the most loving thing. Make him into the man I couldn't be. Roberto Trevor's hands shook. Dad knew he was weak. He knew he wanted better for you. And you loved me enough to do the hardest thing possible. Every single day, I wanted to rescue you. Every single day, I stopped myself. Francis touched his face. That was love, baby. Not the easy kind. The kind that breaks your heart to give. Thank you, Trevor whispered. Thank you for loving me that much. December 4th, 1 year later. The gathering was at Francis' brownstone in Lincoln Park, not the penthouse. 20 people, but different people. Tyrell and Patricia, their daughter Maya, Jake Miller, Stan Rodriguez and his sister Maria, David Klein, Marcus, who'd finally found his courage, and Vanessa. She'd driven up from Miami, where she managed a successful restaurant. Dating someone normal, she'd said on the phone. Trevor, she said when she arrived, you look good, different. I am different. We both are. I'm glad. She smiled, genuine this time. I came to say I'm sorry for losing myself in the money. We both did, but we found our way back. Not together, though. No, but I'm glad you're happy. She hugged him. Me too. Trevor stood to toast, wearing jeans and a sweater. He lived in his Pilsen studio by choice, drove a used Honda Civic, made T2K as operations coordinator. To Frances Stewart, he said, looking at his mother, who built an empire twice, once with her hands, once with her heart, who loved me enough to let me fall and trusted me enough to let me climb back up. Frances raised her glass. To my son, who learned that the only throne worth sitting on is one you build yourself. 3 years later, Trevor, now 30 and regional VP of operations, still worked warehouse floor 1 week every quarter. To remember, he told his team. Maya, 19, interned at Stewart Global. Trevor mentored her. Earn it, every single step. Frances, 71, remained chairwoman. Trevor sat on the board, but reported to 3 people above him. He'd insisted. Christmas morning, Trevor and Frances walked through the main warehouse together. Do you regret it? Frances asked. The fall? Every day, Trevor smiled. And I'm grateful for it every day. That's wisdom. No, Mom, that's love. A young employee struggled with a heavy box nearby. 22, expensive watch, soft hands, obviously privileged. Trevor walked over. Let me show you. This is where you start. The kid looked confused. I'm supposed to be in management training. You are. This is management training. The real kind. Trevor lifted the box, showed him proper form. My mother taught me, you can't lead people whose work you've never done. So we start here, together. Frances watched from across the warehouse, tears in her eyes. The cycle continued, but this time with wisdom. The documentary filmmaker adjusted her camera. Miss, Stuart, what's your secret to building such a lasting legacy? Frances, 73 now, smiled. Beside her sat Trevor, 32, recently named Chief Operating Officer after 5 years of proving himself. I didn't build a company, Frances said. I built a son. The company was just what we did together. And you, Mr. Stewart? What did you learn from your mother? Trevor looked at Frances, his hand on hers. That love isn't giving someone everything they want. It's giving them everything they need, even when it breaks your heart. Especially then, Frances added. The interviewer leaned forward. There are rumors about your early relationship being difficult. It was, Trevor said simply. I was a spoiled kid who thought I'd built an empire. My mom showed me I'd built nothing. She took everything away to give me the only thing that mattered, the chance to become real. And was it worth it? The pain, the struggle? Trevor squeezed his mother's hand. Every single second. After the interview, they walked to the parking lot together. Trevor drove a Tesla now, purchased with his own earnings, but Frances still drove her 15-year-old Subaru. You know you can afford a new car, Mom. This one runs fine. Besides, she winked, I'm teaching you that old habits die hard. Trevor laughed. You'll never stop teaching me, will you? Not until my last breath. That's what mothers do. They hugged goodbye in the December cold. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now go home to your life, the one you built. Trevor drove away, and Frances stood watching until his taillights disappeared. Then she looked up at the Stewart Global building, 40 stories of glass and steel and dreams. She'd built this. But more importantly, she'd built a man who understood what building really meant. That was the legacy that mattered.